time for another installment, and I'm not going to use a certain word anymore because certain things, unfortunately, may be coming to an end. It's not a really good time right now, but when is a good time? Because once again, we start an episode with losing some people that were very near and dear to the grindhouse and wrestling scene. First off, we lost William Smith at age 88. William Smith had probably one of the longest and greatest careers any actor could have. A true chameleon, he could play any role, and he started out as one of the little kids in 1942's Ghost of Frankenstein, and ended on a film in 2020, I think it was called Irresistible or something like that. William spoke 5 languages. Very, very intelligent guy. Also a bodybuilder. One of his closest friends was a fellow bodybuilder, which this might surprise you, Richard Jekyll. They were very close friends. William Smith was also known as the John Wayne of the biker films because he did a ton of biker films. Run Angel Run, The Losers, CC and Company, just a ton of stuff. TV shows, he was in Laredo. Rich Man, Poor Man is the evil Falcon Eddie, which I guess is his best remembered role. But also he was in horror films like The Underrated Grave of the Vampire. The hell was the other one he did? Invasion of the Bee-Girls, Ultimate Warrior, just a ton of stuff, a ton of westerns. Action films, and of course probably might be remembered a lot for a film where a fight scene actually turned real in Darker Than Amber, where basically him and Rod Taylor were brawling and the fight turned real. He stomped on Rod Taylor's arm and broke it. He also paid homage to that scene in his film with Clint Eastwood, Every Which Way But Loose, where he basically, at the end of their climactic fight, stomped on Clint's arm and broke it. I had met Bill at a Chiller Theater convention back in the day. Very nice guy. He was on a bad guy panel, which included Gunnar Hansen. Gunnar Hansen, who else was on that? David Hess, Brian James, and Kane Hodder. Unfortunately, Kane Hodder is the only one left today. And like I said, Bill left a great legacy of work, over close to 300 acting credits, and like I said, hell of a nice guy. Another one who we unfortunately lost at the time of this recording is Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff. Paul was a big part of when wrestling came into, quote, vogue with the Hulk Hogan era. He was part of the first WrestleMania where he tagged with I believe it was Roddy Piper against Hogan and Mr. T. Pretty much, was one of the WWE mainstays, but, injuries forced him out. He went to WCW for a while as one of the guys in the back. There was a YouTube video put up with him recently, which was taken down because he was really in bad shape and basically in the early, it looks like he was in the stages of dementia, stuff like that. I had put the video up because I wanted to draw attention to a situation where basically wrestlers like Paul Orndorff are basically cast-offs from the WWE. They made the McMahons a shitload of money, and unfortunately at the end of their lives they were broke and they weren't taken care of. And if me bashing the McMahons pisses somebody off, well, too fucking bad. To me, they ruined wrestling, and thankfully wrestling's on a comeback right now. Trying to think, but anyway, fortunately Paul was only 71. He was on some documentary I watched called 360 Days, I think it was, about wrestlers living on the road, and he really didn't look too good on that documentary. But anyway, I got some books I want to talk about right now. If you're looking for a good book about 42nd Street and the peep shows and things like that, this certainly isn't one of them. Princess of 42nd Street Surviving My Childhood as a Daughter of Times Square's King of Porn by Romalia Hodis, daughter of Martin Hodis. If you think you're going to learn anything new and exciting about 42nd Street, Martin Hodis, and the Peeps, you're not. This is basically her story about how she was mistreated by her scumbag father and sent to a fat farm and this and that and the other thing. And like I said, 90% of this book is her just whining and carrying on. And unfortunately, there's $20 out the fucking window. Now, if you want a really good book about 42nd Street, American Ecstasy, the story of the Amaro brothers and their foray into the adult film industry. They were huge movie buffs. They were very good friends with Michael and Roberta Finley back in the day. They co-produced a bunch of stuff. And the thing is that they were the ones who released the second X-rated film in New York, and it wasn't Deep Throat. The first X-rated film released in New York was Mona. They had done a film called Bacchanali, and it was softcore, but then somebody clued them in about Mona, and basically they hired Jason and Tina Russell and Harry Reams to do some insert shots, which they put in the film. So that would be the second porn film released in New York that was hardcore. Interesting thing is, both of the brothers were gay and did straight porn. Also, one of the brothers worked with Chuck Vincent toward the end of his career. John is still with us. Unfortunately, Lem isn't. John did write the book, and it's called My 30-Year Search for a Happy Ending, American Ecstasy. Really good. Tells some stuff like it is, gives you some insight into how things were back then and how things were filmed and things like that. And head and shoulders above the one I just tossed on the floor that I'm basically going to probably bring it up to half-price crooks and get 30 cents for it. I had mentioned this before when I had, talked about New Jack's passing. If you want a book written by one of the toughest, craziest guys ever to get in the ring, this is the book. New Jack holds nothing back. From his beginnings in the ring, trained by wrestling legend Ray Candy down in Georgia, to his bounty hunter days, to his days in Smoky Mountain, to riots and all kinds of other shit down there, and then through his getting into ECW and the things that happened there, and him becoming one of ECW's most beloved wrestlers. Unfortunately, I think it was a couple months ago that we lost New Jack to a fatal heart attack at age 58. But if you want to, relive New Jack's career through his eyes and his own words, check out this book here. Now, this one is a little bit of a disappointment to me. It's been probably all over Facebook. Treyjo by Danny Treyjo. I like Danny. I think he's a good guy. He's done a lot for his community, but this is one of those deals, if you're looking to read a lot about what he did in movies, it's simply not there. He brings up Charles Bronson once and Robert De Niro a couple times, and most of it's centered on how American Me was basically offered to him, but he wasn't going to do it because it made light of people that he actually knew that were in the Mexican mafia, so to speak, like Joe Pegleg Morgan and other people. And basically, he didn't do the movie because he didn't want to deal with the repercussions and things like that. But he did ask the people that were, in prison when they did this, that please just remember that the crewmen and actors are just working there, something that caused William Forsythe, who played Pegleg Morgan in American Me, to reach out to Danny and ask if he was going to be in any trouble for doing this, and Danny assured him no, that basically it was going to be people that, jump ship to be extras and be on camera and stuff that basically got the wrath of the Mexican mob. Danny was a drug addict. Most of his family were drug addicts. He went through a bunch of relationships. He had some kids that were drug addicts. He also found God, beat cancer, and did a bunch of other stuff. Like I said, most of it is focused on his life coming up and, catching the break on Runaway Train when he basically went down there to intervene with some guy who was doing a lot of cocaine and ran into an old friend of his from prison, Eddie Bunker. And they were looking for someone basically to train Eric Roberts to box in this prison boxing thing. And when they saw Danny, they basically hired him to be in the film. So that was his first film. Like I said, there isn't a lot about his film career, just things that he was in, briefly thumbnailing through them. You're not going to get any, pretty much any explosive behind-the-scenes stuff with any of this stuff. Like I said, I like Danny. I respect him. He's a good guy. He's a credit to the community. He does a lot of community work and stuff like that. But book was sort of a letdown, like I said, because it didn't cover a lot of the movie stuff that he was in, whether it be A titles like Heat or some of the the B stuff he did. It all it went big into the whole thing about Machete, because that's what Robert Rodriguez and him really wanted to do, create a Mexican superhero, and they did. Like I said, and Danny became a restaurateur and did a bunch of other things too, and is still actively helping the community. And like I said, I met him once, very nice guy, and, like I said, the book is good if you're not looking for, inside stuff on movies, I'll put it that way. And speaking of inside stuff on movies, I was listening to a podcast by Jim Cornette. He brought up the fact that Quentin Tarantino now wrote a book that it happened in Hollywood, whatever. I am not going to read the book, obviously, because I'm never going to back off on my stance that, I don't like Quentin Tarantino. It's that simple. But now this is the whole thing that there was some kind of shit, and I didn't see the film, and I don't know what it is, but Bruce Lee's daughter was really pissed off about the way that Bruce Lee was presented in this film. And that film shown over in China and Hong Kong has that scene excised, I think. But there was something about, Jim Cornette picked something up out of the book that was something that Bruce Lee wasn't kind to stuntmen, which is complete fucking bullshit, and that he had something to do with judo Gene LeBell. Well, I heard the podcast, I get where Jim's coming from, and I decided to check this out. And I found an interview with judo Gene LeBell, who was one of the toughest men in America, who also was one of the first, martial arts trainers in America. And it seemed like he did have a relationship with Bruce Lee. He was the guy who taught Bruce Lee to grapple, because Gene was a wrestler also. And Bruce Lee was a striker, so he had to train Bruce Lee to grapple a bit, to fit in with his modus operandi. So there was never any incident between judo Gene LeBell and Bruce Lee. And like Jim Cornette says, if there was, the wrestling community would know about it. What I think was going on, and what Cornette brought up, was that another phony bastard, Steven Seagal, was out there and said to judo Gene that nobody could choke him out. So Gene, being the gentleman that he is, put Mr. Seagal in a chokehold. Mr. Seagal attempted to break the chokehold by kicking Gene in the balls. And then in Gene's own words, Mr. Seagal sort of went to sleep and must have forgot that he had to go to the bathroom. Basically what happened was, this idiot, who basically there's no background on any of this shit he fucking says, if anybody was miserable to stuntmen, it was Steven Seagal. And if you ever want to get William Forsythe foaming at the mouth, just bring up Steven Seagal, because Bill will tell you what a scumbag he was on the set of Out for Justice. So what happened was that, Seagal decided to take on a guy who was probably one of the toughest guys in America, got choked out and pissed his pants. That's what happened. So again, like I said, whatever Tarantino wrote in this book had nothing to do with judo Gene LeBell and Bruce Lee ever locking up, and there was never any animosity between the two as far as I can tell. And I've read books on Bruce Lee and judo Gene LeBell, and there was nothing but mutual respect there. So again, we got, more fucking bullshit from the wonderful QT. Who is going to make his supposedly 10th and last film? Thank God. I don't think Alfred Hitchcock, Sam Peckinpah, Sergio Leone, or any of those guys ever said, well, I'm going to make my last film because I've done it all. I don't get this guy, and I really don't give a fuck about him. So that's our show for today. I don't think we're out of the woods with this COVID-19 shit, and I'm still wearing my mask when I go out, and I would advise everybody to do so. And if nothing else, get the fucking shot. I know there's been a bunch of shit going on about reactions and stuff like that, but it's sort of like, okay, the reactions are sort of 1 in a million, and certain things happen. So I got the Moderna shot. My only reaction from that was the second shot was I came home and I passed out and slept for 2 hours, which I probably needed anyway. So please take care of yourselves. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you next time.